It was nearing midnight when Anna realized her rideshare hadn't arrived. The small-town street was unusually quiet, with only the buzzing of a single flickering streetlight above her head. She pulled her coat tighter as the November wind cut across her arms. Her phone screen glowed, showing that her driver had canceled at the last moment. Third time in a row tonight. Odd. Normally, drivers flooded the area on weekends, eager for fares leaving the nearby bars. Anna debated calling another, but her battery hovered at 11%, and she didn't trust it to last much longer. She considered walking the half-mile to her apartment, but something about the silence in the air told her not to. A low hum of an approaching engine drew her attention. Headlights curved around the street corner, washing the empty sidewalk in pale yellow. A silver sedan slowed down as it neared her, its windows tinted too dark to see inside. The car pulled up right in front of her, and the passenger window rolled halfway down. A man's voice called out, casual but firm. "You waiting for a ride?" She hesitated. His tone was oddly confident, like he already knew the answer. The rideshare logo wasn't displayed on his windshield either, which made her pulse quicken. She gave a stiff shake of her head, but the man only smiled and leaned slightly closer. "Well, I can take you where you need to go. It's too cold out here for a girl like you." Anna's first instinct screamed at her to decline. Yet the empty street, the dying phone battery, and the thought of walking alone made her second-guess herself. She mumbled something about waiting for a friend, but the man lingered. He tapped the roof of his car, like a salesman presenting his product. His smile never faded, but his eyes, just barely visible in the dark, watched her too intently. Seconds dragged, and she finally said firmly, "No thanks." The window slid back up, but the car didn't drive away immediately. It idled there, engine purring, as if waiting for her to change her mind. Only when another vehicle turned onto the street did the silver sedan slowly roll forward, disappearing around the corner. She exhaled sharply, realizing she had been holding her breath. The relief didn't last long. 2 minutes later, as she began walking toward her apartment, she spotted those same headlights reappearing at the far end of the block. The car was moving slower this time, as though pacing her steps. Anna's heart skipped, and she quickly ducked into a narrow alley she had passed countless times before. The alley was dark and smelled faintly of wet concrete and old trash. Her boots splashed in shallow puddles as she quickened her pace, hoping to cut through to the main road. Behind her, she swore she heard the sound of tires easing to a stop at the other end of the alley. Anna burst out onto another empty street. Her phone buzzed weakly in her pocket, 5% now. She pulled it out to check her location, but froze when she noticed movement in her peripheral vision. The silver sedan had turned down the same street, now crawling forward like a predator following prey. The passenger window rolled down again, slower this time. The same voice floated out, no longer casual but chillingly insistent. "I told you. I'll take you away." Anna's pulse quickened as the words echoed from the sedan, "I'll take you away." She didn't wait to see what he would do next. Instinct took over, and she bolted down the sidewalk, the slap of her boots sharp against the wet pavement. The cold air burned her lungs as she ran, praying that the man wouldn't follow. For a brief moment, the sound of the idling engine remained steady behind her. Then came the slow growl of tires moving, easing forward in her direction. He wasn't speeding. He was stalking, savoring. That was worse. She darted across the street toward the row of old shops that lined the block. Most were shuttered for the night, their neon signs dark, but one narrow store had a dim light still on in the back. It looked like an old laundromat, the kind that never really closed. Anna stumbled toward it, her heart pounding, only to find the door locked from the inside. She banged on the glass, whispering pleas for someone to notice her. Inside, only a single dryer turned lazily, its drum reflecting the weak light. No one was there. She pressed her forehead against the door for a split second, then forced herself to move again. The sedan's headlights swept across the storefronts, illuminating her for an instant like a spotlight. She ducked back into another alley, narrower than the first, and this time darker. The air was damp and smelled of mildew, with brick walls towering over her on both sides. Somewhere above, a loose gutter rattled in the wind, making her flinch. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands, 3% battery left, and dialed 911. The ringing cut off almost immediately. 911. What's your emergency? Relief surged in her chest. But before she could speak, the line crackled and went dead. Her phone screen went black. Anna gripped the useless phone like a weapon and pressed her back against the wall. She could hear it now, footsteps. Not the shuffle of her own boots, but slower, deliberate steps echoing down the alley from the street she had entered. Her stomach twisted. He had gotten out of the car. She forced herself to move, hugging the wall as she slid further into the darkness. The alley bent slightly, leading to a chain-link fence at the end. Her eyes darted back. A silhouette had appeared under the alley's entrance. Tall, shoulders broad, his figure haloed by the distant headlights of the sedan. She reached the fence and clawed at it, the cold metal biting into her fingers. It was high, maybe 8 feet, but climbable if she didn't hesitate. She slung her bag to the ground, grabbed onto the chain link, and began hauling herself up. Her boots slipped twice against the slick surface, but adrenaline forced her upward. Halfway up, she glanced down. The man was inside the alley now, walking slowly but deliberately, his face still hidden in shadow. She scrambled faster, heart hammering, and pulled herself over the top, scraping her hands raw as she dropped hard onto the pavement on the other side. She didn't look back. She just ran. Anna's lungs burned as she sprinted down the back street beyond the fence, her footsteps echoing against the silent buildings. Her body screamed at her to stop, to catch her breath, but she forced herself forward. She risked a glance over her shoulder. The alley behind her was momentarily empty, but she knew he wouldn't stop. He had followed her this far. The thought that he was calmly climbing that fence now, deliberate and patient, filled her with a cold dread that almost outweighed her exhaustion. The street she found herself on was unfamiliar, rows of shuttered warehouses and boarded-up storefronts that felt abandoned. No traffic, no people, only the distant hum of the man's idling car somewhere out of sight. She hugged the shadows as she moved, praying she might stumble upon an open business or a late-night passerby. Every doorway she checked was locked, every window dark. The silence pressed in on her like a weight, broken only by the faint scrape of metal from behind. She froze. He had cleared the fence. She ducked into the doorway of an old hardware shop, crouching low and willing herself to blend into the dark. Her breaths came shallow and uneven. A few seconds later, the sound of footsteps returned, steady, unhurried, echoing in the emptiness. He wasn't running. He didn't need to. His pace was confident, as though he knew she couldn't escape. The sound grew louder, then softer, like he was weaving through the street, scanning, searching. Anna clutched her useless phone like a talisman, heart slamming against her ribs. After what felt like forever, the footsteps paused. She risked leaning ever so slightly forward, peering around the doorframe. The man stood not 20 feet away, head tilted like he was listening to something she couldn't hear. His features were partially visible now under a faint security light. Sharp jawline, short dark hair, eyes that glinted with a strange hunger. He scanned the shadows deliberately, then slowly turned his head, straight toward her hiding place. Their eyes locked. Anna stumbled back instinctively, and the man smiled faintly, his lips curling without warmth. Then he began walking directly toward her. Panic surged. She bolted from the doorway, her legs screaming as she ran again. Ahead, she spotted a set of stairs leading down to what looked like a service entrance beneath one of the warehouses. She didn't think. She just took them two at a time, yanked the rusted door handle, and nearly sobbed when it opened. She darted inside and slammed it shut behind her, plunging into darkness that smelled of dust and damp concrete. She pressed herself against the cold metal door, straining to hear if he followed. Above, the footsteps stopped. Then came the faint creak of the stairwell. The heavy door clicked shut behind Anna, and the sound echoed like a gunshot in the pitch-black basement. She stood frozen, her breath ragged, palms pressed against the metal as though holding it closed could somehow keep him out. The air was damp, tinged with mildew and rust, and every exhale formed faint clouds she could barely see in the dark. She strained her ears. For a long, terrible moment, silence pressed down on her like a weight. Then, faintly above, came the slow groan of the stairwell as he descended. The sound of his footsteps was heavier now, closer, deliberate. Her heart hammered as she staggered backward into the dark. The floor beneath her boots was uneven, cluttered with discarded boxes and tools that clattered when she brushed against them. She winced at the noise and bit down hard on her lip, trying to stay quiet. Somewhere to her right, she could make out the faint outline of support beams, tall and narrow like skeletal frames in the gloom. She wove between them, crouching low, every step a careful gamble. Behind her, the metal door rattled. He was testing it. Then, without hesitation, the hinges groaned. The door began to open. Panic clawed at her chest. She ducked behind a stack of wooden crates, crouching low, barely daring to breathe. The basement door creaked wider, and the sound of his shoes scuffed against the concrete as he stepped inside. He didn't speak. That silence was worse than words. The man was somewhere in the dark with her, and she couldn't see him anymore. Every scrape of shoe against cement made her flinch. Every shift of air felt like he was closing in. She tried to still her trembling hands, but even her breath sounded deafening in her ears. Minutes stretched like hours. She dared not move, yet her legs burned from crouching. Then, faintly, a sound, a soft dragging, like his hand brushing across the crates nearby. He was searching, touching, mapping the room in silence. Anna clamped a hand over her mouth, terrified the sound of her heartbeat might give her away. The dragging stopped. The air felt heavier, oppressive. Slowly, too slowly, she realized. He was standing on the other side of the crates, just feet away. She could almost feel him there, listening, smiling in the dark. Anna bolted. She exploded from her hiding spot, nearly toppling the crates as she sprinted into the black. Something scraped close behind her, his arm swiping the air where she'd been a second ago. Her boot caught on a loose board, and she crashed to the ground, pain shooting through her knees. She scrambled forward, palms scraping raw, and spotted, miraculously, a faint green glow ahead. An emergency exit sign. She forced herself up, sprinted toward it, and slammed into another door, fumbling wildly with the handle. It resisted for a split second too long before finally giving way. She burst out into the night, the bitterly cold air cutting across her face like a blade. Anna staggered into the cold air, her chest heaving. The night outside felt wide open compared to the suffocating black of the basement, but relief never came. She doubled over, gulping icy breaths, eyes darting up and down the street. It was empty, too empty. No headlights, no distant hum of cars, not even the bark of a dog. The town felt abandoned, swallowed by silence. For one dizzying second, she wondered if she'd stumbled into some place removed from the world, a stage built only for her and the man who hunted her. She pressed forward, her legs trembling with every step, hugging herself for warmth as much as for courage. She forced her mind to focus. She needed people, a lit window, any sign of life. A block ahead, she spotted a row of houses, their shapes dark against the skyline. A single porch light glowed faintly, and her heart leapt at the sight. She sprinted toward it, boots striking hard against the pavement. But halfway there, a sound broke through the silence, the steady roll of tires. The silver sedan turned onto the street, its headlights swinging across her like a spotlight on stage. Anna froze like a rabbit caught in the beam. The car slowed, deliberate, and pulled to the curb ahead of her, cutting off her path to the houses. The driver's door cracked open. For the first time, she heard his shoes on the pavement, measured, calm, as though he had all the time in the world. She spun and ran back the way she had come, desperation clawing at her throat. Behind her, the car door shut with a dull thud, and his footsteps quickened, chasing after her on foot now. She cut down another street, praying for some miracle, but everything looked the same. Rows of darkened houses, no one stirring, as though the neighborhood had been abandoned overnight. Every corner she turned, every block she crossed, the sound of his pursuit followed close behind. At times she could swear he was just a few paces away, his shadow stretching across hers in the glow of a distant street lamp. Yet whenever she risked a glance back, he seemed to keep the same, steady distance, like he was letting her run, letting her hope. Before closing in, her legs ached, her throat raw, when she finally stumbled into a cul-de-sac at the far end of the street. No lights, no cars, only more silence. Trapped. Her chest tightened as she spun in a circle, searching for an escape. Then, at the edge of the cul-de-sac, she noticed one house with its front door ajar, swinging slightly in the wind. The faint glow of a lamp flickered inside. Anna hesitated only a second. Behind her, his footsteps grew louder, steady, unstoppable. She bolted for the open door, praying someone was home, praying she wouldn't be stepping into another nightmare. Anna sprinted across the cul-de-sac, her pulse hammering, and pushed through the open front door without thinking. The air inside was warmer, but it carried a strange heaviness, like a room sealed too long. She slammed the door shut behind her and pressed her back against it, listening. Outside, the footsteps stopped. Silence stretched. She strained to hear any sound of him, but all she caught was the faint creak of the porch boards under shifting weight. He was there, waiting. The house smelled of dust and something faintly metallic, like rust or old pennies. A single lamp burned in the corner of the living room, casting long shadows across the walls. Furniture sat askew, as though it had been moved in a hurry, and a coffee mug lay shattered on the carpet. Anna's throat tightened. The house didn't feel empty. It felt interrupted. She whispered a shaky hello, but no answer came. Only the soft groan of the wind through the ajar windows. She tiptoed deeper inside, her boots making the floorboards creak in protest. Family photos lined the wall, but the faces were blurred with dust and age, the glass frames smeared with grime. One photo had fallen and cracked, the smiling figures frozen in a time long past. Anna forced her eyes away and searched for a phone, anything she could use. But the kitchen counter was bare, drawers half open, as though someone had already taken what mattered and left in a rush. Suddenly, the porch boards creaked again, louder this time. She darted back toward the living room, crouching behind the couch. Through the sliver of the window, she saw him, standing perfectly still in the yard, his silhouette framed by the streetlight. He didn't approach the door, didn't knock. He just stood there, watching. Her chest tightened as she realized he wasn't leaving. He was letting her trap herself. Her body trembled with indecision. Stay hidden and hope he lost interest? Or slip deeper into the house and pray there was another exit? From somewhere upstairs, a soft sound broke the silence, a floorboard creaking under weight. Anna froze. The blood drained from her face. There was someone else inside. Anna's breath came in shallow bursts as the creak overhead echoed through the house. Every instinct screamed at her to run for the back door, but something about the sound froze her in place. Whoever, or whatever, was upstairs, they had been here before she arrived. The thought chilled her more than the man outside. If she tried to slip out blindly, she could end up colliding with them in the dark. Her hands shook as she gripped the banister, the wood smooth and cold under her palm. Slowly, she began to climb the stairs. Each step groaned in protest, a betrayal against her attempts to move silently. The light from the downstairs lamp faded behind her, swallowed by the shadows. At the top, a narrow hallway stretched into blackness, lined with bedroom doors standing ajar like open mouths. The air felt heavier here, dustier, as though no one had walked these halls in years. She strained her ears. Nothing, just silence. Then, soft, almost polite, came the creak of another floorboard, this time directly ahead. She crept forward, her knees nearly buckling with each cautious step. One of the doors halfway down the hall was slightly more open than the rest. Through the gap, she thought she saw movement, something shifting in the dark. Her breath hitched. She reached into her coat pocket, gripping the dead phone as if it could protect her. Summoning what little courage she had left, she pushed the door open. The hinges squealed, and the room inside yawned into view. It was a bedroom, cluttered and stale. The bed was unmade, the sheets tangled like they'd been abandoned mid-sleep. A half-empty water glass sat on the nightstand, the liquid inside cloudy with age. On the dresser, children's toys lay scattered, a small plastic car, a doll with one glassy eye staring blankly upward. The air carried a faint sourness, like something had gone bad long ago. But there was no one in sight, just shadows. She took one step inside, and the floor dipped slightly beneath her weight. Behind her, in the hallway, the sound came again. Slow, steady footsteps. But this time she knew they weren't his. The man outside couldn't have entered without her noticing. These steps were softer, lighter, almost deliberate in their restraint. Anna turned, her body rigid, and saw it, a figure standing at the far end of the hall. Small, frail, its outline unmistakably human. It didn't move. It just stood in the dark, watching. The figure at the end of the hall remained still, almost statuesque, its outline faint but undeniable. Anna's throat constricted as she tried to form words, but nothing came. The air felt heavier now, thick with the weight of its silent gaze. She took a trembling step backward into the bedroom, her hand brushing the edge of the dresser. The figure didn't move. It only watched. Then, slowly, as though testing her, it tilted its head to one side. The motion was subtle but unnatural, like a puppet responding to strings, summoning what little courage she had. Anna whispered, "Who's there?" Her voice cracked in the silence, small and thin. For a moment, there was nothing. Then the figure stepped forward, just enough for her to see. It was a child, a boy, no older than 10, his clothes rumpled and out of place, like pajamas worn too many nights without washing. His face caught the faint light spilling from the bedroom, pale and hollow-eyed, but not grotesque. Just tired. Tired in a way a child never should be. He didn't answer her. He only stared at Anna's fear shifted into confusion. A child? In this abandoned feeling house. Her instincts screamed that something was wrong, but her compassion gnawed at her. "Are you okay?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The boy's lips parted, but no words came. Instead, he lifted a small hand and pointed behind her. Slowly, deliberately. Her skin prickled as she froze. She didn't want to look, but she couldn't resist. Heart thundering, she turned her head. The reflection in the dresser mirror caught her eye first. In the warped glass, she saw more than just herself. Behind her, in the dark corner of the room she had entered, stood another figure. Taller, darker, its face swallowed by shadow. Her stomach lurched. She whipped around, but the corner was empty. Nothing there. She turned back to the boy, desperate for an explanation, but the hallway was empty now too. He was gone. Her chest tightened as she staggered backward. A sound broke the silence, the unmistakable creak of the front door opening downstairs. Anna's blood ran cold. The boy may have vanished, but the man outside hadn't. He was inside the house now, and this time, she was cornered. Anna's legs nearly gave out when the front door creaked open below. She dropped to her knees, pressing herself low against the floor, praying the boards wouldn't groan under her weight. The air in the hallway felt suffocating now, every shadow a threat. She strained her ears. The sound of the door closing echoed through the house, followed by the slow, deliberate thud of footsteps on the wooden floorboards. He was inside. Her heart pounded in her throat as she crawled into the nearest room, a narrow bathroom at the end of the hall. The smell of mildew and stale water hit her as she closed the door gently behind her. The lock was broken, so she pressed her back against it, trying to keep her breathing shallow and silent. From beyond the thin wall, the creak of the staircase carried upward. Each step he took rattled through the house like a countdown. She squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to stay still. Though every nerve screamed at her to run, the stairs stopped groaning. Silence stretched. She didn't know if that was better or worse. A faint shuffle moved along the hallway. He was up here now. She imagined him standing just outside the bathroom door, smiling in the dark. She bit down on her fist to stifle a sob. Then, from the hallway, came something unexpected, the patter of lighter footsteps, too quick and small to be his. The sound darted across the hall, toward the bedrooms. For a moment, everything paused. Then the man's voice broke the silence, soft and coaxing. "I see you." Anna's stomach twisted. He wasn't talking to her. He was talking to the boy, the same boy who had vanished moments before. She pressed herself harder against the door, trembling, trying to piece together what was happening. But then the floorboards groaned directly outside the bathroom. A shadow passed under the door crack. The handle jiggled once, twice, then stilled. He was there, inches from her, separated only by the flimsy wood of the door. Her breath caught in her chest as she reached for the only thing within arm's length, an old, rusted towel rod lying loose against the floor. She gripped it tightly, sweat slicking her palms. The silence outside thickened until it became unbearable. Then, suddenly, the sound of running footsteps thundered down the hall. Fast, frantic. The boy again. The man's shoes followed, pounding after them. The bathroom door was left untouched, but Anna knew she had only seconds to act. This was her chance. Anna burst out of the bathroom, clutching the rusted towel rod like a weapon. Her pulse thundered as she darted down the hallway, following the sounds of the chase. The house trembled with the heavy rhythm of boots pounding against wood, the lighter patter of smaller feet leading them both. She skidded around a corner and froze at the top of the staircase. The boy stood halfway down, staring up at her, pale face glowing faintly in the dim light. And behind him, climbing steadily upward, was the man. His eyes locked onto Anna's, unblinking, and his smile stretched wider than it had all night. Her breath caught. The boy didn't move, didn't cry out. He simply turned his head toward the man, then back to her, as though acknowledging the roles in a game already decided. Anna's grip on the rod tightened. She had nowhere else to go. The bedrooms were dead ends, the hallway a trap. It was here or never. Summoning every ounce of strength, she charged forward with a scream, swinging the rod down toward the man's head. The metal connected with a sickening crack, sending him stumbling back against the wall. The boy vanished. One blink, and he was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just gone. The sudden emptiness was more terrifying than his presence had been. The man groaned, his hand pressed to his temple, but his smile didn't fade. "You're stronger than you look," he hissed, his voice low, almost admiring. He lunged forward, grabbing for her wrist. Anna twisted, the rod slipping from her sweaty hand as they both crashed into the banister. The old wood groaned under their weight, splinters biting into her skin. She kicked wildly, her boot connecting with his chest, forcing him backward. The banister gave way with a splintering crack. The man toppled, his body crashing down the staircase with a thud that echoed through the hollow house. Anna staggered back, chest heaving, gripping the banister post for balance. The silence that followed was unbearable, each second stretching until she feared he would rise again. But the man didn't move. His body lay twisted at the base of the stairs, finally still. Anna stumbled down, legs trembling, and stopped short. The front door hung open, the night air spilling in. Beyond it, the street was empty. No sedan, no headlights, nothing. She turned back one last time. The man's body was gone. Only the broken wood of the banister and faint smears of blood on the floor remained. From somewhere deep in the house, faint and fragile, she heard the boy's voice at last. "I told you. He'll take you away." The sound faded like smoke, leaving her alone in the cold silence. And then Anna ran, not stopping until dawn broke.